What's going on, everyone? It's Mitch from RespectMyReason.com, and we're coming back with another episode of the RMR podcast, episode 60. Today, we got some special guests from the direct opposite side of the map out in New York. Jonathan Elfand, co-founder of Empire Cannabis Club, and Pops over here. How you guys doing today?
Doing great, Mitch. How are you?
Man, I'm living life. I just got back from the East Coast myself in Boston. Not quite New York, but we'll be out in the city here in a month for MJ Impact and trying to get out there for some other stuff. But before we get into too much, every guest, I always start with the question of their origin story around the plant, that plant being cannabis. So, Jonathan, I'm just curious, kind of when you and cannabis began your relationship together.
My relationship. Wow, interesting. I was pretty young. I probably should have waited a few years, but I started enjoying cannabis. I used it at 14 years old, maybe 15, but I quickly got into the business side of it by the time I was 15, 16 also, just because it was what was shaking and happening at the time. There wasn't that many people that knew where, what, and how. So I kind of augmented into it real quick. But yeah, 14 years old, I tasted my first. It was about 14. Yeah, right? Yeah, probably around 14. Yeah,
it's about 14 so many years a kid.
Yeah.
What was the bud looking like out there in the Northeast back then? Was it anything good, or just some mids or some lows?
I gotta say, I had a bunch of relatives that were involved in the commercial side of cannabis, like the smuggling stuff. So as a young man, I was seeing boatloads of Thai weed come in. I was seeing Colombian reds, Mexican this, Jamaican. I saw from the worst to the wow, oh my God, like bales of things that you were like, holy crap, why would you press that like that? But yeah, we had some phenomenal stuff back then. Some of the Thai strains were, wow, amazing.
Yeah, those original land races. When did you start Empire Cannabis Club, and what was kind of the inspiration behind starting that business model?
The New York legislature put together the MRTA under they have Governor Cuomo at that time, and they got the concept in their head that it was time to stop playing all the games, and cannabis was everywhere in New York for decades anyway. Let's get it legalized. Let's try to grab a few bucks off of it. So they implemented the MRTA, and I have some things to do with legal analysis of a lot of the laws that are coming into effect, mostly because I get in trouble with a lot of stuff around it. But we did some analysis of the New York MRTA, and I found a couple things that were written in that allowed us to immediately open and start a legitimate dispensary without waiting for corporate America to come in and say, hey, here's $1 billion to fight. So it worked out to where we're the first major dispensary chain in New York City, all above board and running smooth as could be.
And even at that, just looking at things online, your guys' digital footprint is pretty solid. The website is great. I'm a marketer, so even from an SEO perspective, I see dispensaries out here on the West Coast that have been around for a while, not even to build a website or really put lacking into that. What has kind of gone into not only expanding to multiple locations, but making sure that the brand is represented in a well professional manner, both in store and online?
It's been but the way we started it and the way New York has took off, it's been kind of racing forward to stop for a quick breath and make sure we're doing it right. Because I've been in it a long time, I think that's helped a lot. And we've put together a very good plan to make sure not only that we put out a product and a name that everyone is going to remember in New York for decades to come, but we've also done with the marketing from the website to even the parties we're throwing and everything else for our members to get involved with. We've done, I think, between my sister Lenore, my partner Julio, my brother Blake, my dad right here, and we have another associate, Joel Navarez, that works on all our technical stuff. We've put together an amazing plan and made a lot of fun for our members to get involved with. So.
And so right now you guys have the 4 locations open. The 5th is opening around 420 in Soho. Where are the 4 current locations at?
We got our original place that we started in Chelsea. We got real lucky with that one. We popped off in Chelsea right after the pandemic. So we ended up, my sister found a spot there and we were back and forth if we were ready to run. We ran with it and it became a phenomenal location. We got a lot of loving members there. Thousands and thousands of people that are enjoying our constant thing over our setup over there. Then we opened the second one in Lower East Side in Manhattan. Another great space. A lot of people in there are loving what we do. Although there's a lot of dispensaries for probably the past 6-8 months that have opened up around the area. Phenomenal location also. We also have Williamsburg in Brooklyn, and we've just opened up Greenpoint in Brooklyn.
Yeah, taking over the New York area, man, going to all the boroughs, huh?
And we're working fast as we can. Like I said, we're running the race. We got actually 2 other spots. We got one that's almost done is in Soho in Canal and Broadway, right across from the Cannabis Museum. And then I got another one that we're working on right now in Fulton Mall in Brooklyn near the Barclays Center and stuff. That's going to be a dispensary with 3 stories of consumption lounge, nightclub right up top. It's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, that'll be a complete vibe. Around this 5th opening in Soho, closer to 420. I know you're gonna have activations at all 5 locations at that point, and then 421, you guys are doing the concert with Method Man and Redman. Obviously, ingrained in stoner culture forever. Those 2 legends. What else can people expect kind of around 420 and this concert on 421 from you guys?
I think we're sitting with a lot of members right now. I think, what are we at? Like close to 100,000 members across New York City right now, which is, got to say, we did a great job, but that's amazing that everyone's blessed us to really enjoy our concept. With 100,000 members, we're going to open up all our stores with a lot of items to try and check out from all our vendors that participate in making our stores fantastic. So there'll be a lot of giveaways, a lot of things for people to check out, a lot of coming items that we'll be promoting for all our members to stop in on 420. I'm trying to do it with all our stores on 420 so that, because I know there's a lot of little things going all over town. And, listen, I don't want to take anything away from any of the rest of the social equity legacy market that's rocking in New York. I've been here for 40 years and I love New York City. That's my place. And everybody from New York that wants to participate, I'm down and helping them do it. So our opening of the stores for 420 is basically so that everyone can just keep cruising around town and checking out everything, stop in a store and go over to Washington Square Park, go over to Union Square, check out the guys over at Cookies, everything. I want them to see everything. 421 is our day, though. We're locked down Terminal 5. There's a couple other people coming in now trying to play a few, hit some horns and play some tunes, but we've got something really magnificent going to go off at Terminal 5 with Method Man, Redman, and Funk Master Flex. Flex is going to rock the whole house all night long around them, and got a couple new hip hop guys that are coming in, R&B hip hop type things that are going to be excellent, man. We're going to have a lot of fun. A lot of vendors showing up too. We're going to have a lot of things, a lot of smoke to check out. So,
hey, we like to hear that, and I also like that setup of it's not necessarily about competing, but like you said, giving space for everyone on 420, the big holiday when everyone's going to do stuff and do something the next day. With New York coming online right now, I'm sure that there's a mixture of community and those communal aspects of people trying to do whatever they can to just uplift, the rising tides raising all ships. And there's also some competitive nature that obviously has existed in business in New York, predating adult use and across all industries. What's your temperature of being on the ground? Do you feel like a lot of people are willing to work with one another and really pushing for the community to win? Or do you feel like it's a lot of cutthroat, business stuff, or is it a little bit of mix of both?
Hey, capitalism in the world today is everything about getting yours. It's always been that way. I'm not going to lie. I want to get mine. I want my family to have a piece of the cannabis industry across this world because we've been dealing with it for decades. But, we have a lot of cutthroat stuff. I got people that just popped a shop open directly across the street from me in Greenpoint. As I'm opening the door, they were coming by saying hello a few weeks ago. And then they rushed and opened up a shop and they literally opened up the day before we did our grand opening. And I was like, everyone's like, we can't believe it. I said, listen, God bless, man. If you can make a buck, do it to it. And I got no hard feelings over it. Competition is competition. But toward the social equity and legacy end of it, I got a lot of heart for everybody on the street. Like even in California, I've smuggled weed from Mexico back in the 90s and stuff. And I dealt with a lot of hunting down Humboldt weed and stuff in Eureka back when it was hard to find 10, 20 pounds at that time. I know a lot of people in the industry, and I want those same people participating. So even in California, if you come into my places, we try to even help out a lot of the social equity brands and legacy brands from California, Colorado, Florida coming on. But New York, I'm a New Yorker born and raised. I'm going to win New York. Empire's going to be the empire of cannabis in New York City, spanning from here. But legacy and social equity, my hands out, man. Whatever I could do to help them keep moving forward and take a piece of this thing, I'm down. I don't mind giving a little. It's all right.
I love that, man. I love that. And obviously, New York has a lot of pride. I mean, anywhere people are from, they have pride where they're from. But New York is one of the places, known globally. People from New York love where they're from. But looking at cannabis legalization, a lot of these brands from the West Coast have obviously they've had the advantage of being in the adult use market and being able to establish a brand at an easier route than some of the legacy folks. Do you feel like the average, member, patient, consumer in New York, are they really checking for West Coast brands, or are they looking for some New York bred stuff?
Hard question. Good. Here's try to give my best answer to that, because as you said, if Prop 215 had been New York City, the New York City would be the one that has, I don't think in essence that because California is California, that's what created the cannabis mecca of California. It was a lot of, there was a lot of people participating all through the 70s, 80s out there, but we even had it in New York. I had friends growing. My father and them had weed smuggling in and growing all over New York for freaking decades. Decade stuff. I keep speaking decades. I'm feeling real old now. But the part of like with you're going to always, because they had 10, 20 years to establish everything in California, of course, there's many, many brands. I mean, it's like saying Heinz ketchup. It had that long to get its name locked in. It's always going to be Heinz ketchup. But there are other, with New York coming online, and, there's a lot of issues for what occurred. I'm one of those that over the past 10 years, every time I turn to one of my associates in the industry there, oh, man, we're almost to the finish line, man. We're going to have this $1 trillion outcome. My man, you haven't even took the first couple steps past the starting line. I said, the way they formulated this thing, there's never been an industry created state by state by state, this state legislation, that state commerce clause. You can't do business from California to this one. Your name can only be known here. Absolute chaos in industry. And it's going to get weeded out right now. Supreme Court's going to rule that the Commerce Clause protects that you can't legislate state by state for goods. And it gives us the shot in New York to create, not only show the brands from California that have already locked in a decent name on the West Coast and some here doing all the the BM market, and that was the only way to really get your name locked. But there'll be a bunch of new brands from Empire, I hope, and several others that will create a name in New York that pushes out all over the friggin' world, because New York has always done that. It wasn't San Francisco, LA, Miami, or anything. They are all looked at and known all over the world. But New York is New York. Freaking the Big Apple. France is looking at us every day. Japan says, what are they doing in New York? Everybody says, what's going on in New York? And so from here right now, even the California brands that have been locked into their California market, you get on Empire shelves and I'll make your name rocket all over the freaking world. That's what's going to happen from here.
Yeah, I mean, New York's been the most talked about market in legalization. I feel like the last 3 to 4 years, like it's barely getting online with the regulated adult use market, but it's been the focal point of the entire industry. And much how it's rolled out, on paper, New York was at first held in high regard for how it was rolling out the regulated market, championing social equity, championing the farmer, championing legacy. But then, as we've seen, probably all the rollouts have been disastrous, but New York has probably been the worst, which is ironic, just seeing that it's been able to watch so many other states come online. And you think, like, how can they not learn what's right and learn what's wrong? But yet here we are. On paper, everything looks great, but how it's rolling out looks like it's less in favor of a lot of what they're talking about on paper, which is kind of just politics 101. You say a lot of things that rallies up the common man, and then you do a bunch of stuff that has benefits to who has the money, because that's who puts money in your back pocket. What's your take on this rollout and just kind of the political currency of looking good on paper and what's coming out of their mouth, but then the obvious shit show that's unfolding in front of us?
Hey, see this old man right here? We've been discussing it for, 30 years now? What's the first thing you do to clean up all the bullshit with politics and business in this country? Kill all the lobbyists. Let's get them all out the fucking way. And we got the problems all end right there. But, listen, New York had there's some good concepts to it. And you have a lot of, I won't put anybody down on it. I actually think Governor, how do you say it, Hochul. Yeah. I actually think she's got some good things in what she's doing. She has a lot of great initiatives. I think this guy, Chris Alexander from the OCM of New York, Office of Cannabis Management, guy has been a righteous dude trying to help out certain segments of society, not just in cannabis, but, minority areas of our state. I give a lot of props to a lot of people. The mayor of New York, excellent. I actually truly like the mayor. I think he's a hell of a decent dude, got his head on correctly, dealing with a lot of problems with this cannabis stuff that was created because, as I said, ain't no industry ever come from state by state legislation. You can't come into a market that has had the BM, the black market goods. We've got more fugazi shit here, along with the real shit, for longer than any place in this country. If you got fake Chanel purses on Canal Street, you got a million stizzies and bizzies and hizzies and dizzy. Everything's all over the freaking place. You weren't going to create a market that locked down a central state by only state grown, sold, everything. It's not going to happen here. I think a lot of what they're doing, in the end of the day, though, it's like you're saying, politicians always want to look good to the people. That keeps them getting voted in and everything else. And in the end result, they want to make sure they're making the guys over here feel good, so they got a lot of money coming in later in their life when they get out, and they got to be a lobbyist for these companies and every other friggin' thing. You can watch what's kind of occurring in New York, and you can see that, a lot of people look at stuff and they don't notice the red herring that's getting thrown in their face. Hey, look over here. Don't look over here. I think this whole thing, there was a lot of good ideas to it, but I think that a lot of the legislature already had their hands in with the corporate cannabis. And I think there was some understandings with corporate cannabis. Hey, we're going to do a little of this and we're going to do a little of that. The $500, $200 million budget we're going to do for all these social equity legacy people, It's not going to end up being there. So they're not going to open a lot of them, and they're going to have problems and all this shit. So don't worry. After we start this 3 years into it, you guys are going to get it anyway. If you read a lot of the bills with the MRTA helping out the card program, social equity, a lot of it has background little things in it to where, hey, if this social equity person ends up failing, the original entity with Chris Webber and them running this $200 million thing can buy up that thing and they can move it, all ending up being, hey, it ends up in corporate hands. The biggest thing is, I think, and this is truly my feelings to it, I think that they would have got away with a lot more of this if Empire Cannabis wasn't here. Mm-hmm. From the beginning, I've went on New York 1 with my sister and my partners and Forbes magazine and everything. And I called everyone out. I said, enough of these fucking games. You know, you want to tout all this shit and everything's getting built so that it just ends up over here anyway. Let's stop the bullshit. If you're going to do these things, let's do them the right way. And I put a lot of people on notice, whether it be the governor, whether it be the OCM, whatever, that to say, shit, we can't just throw the red herring and everyone looks, because Empire's saying, wait a minute, look over here. And so they've now, if you saw, they just added 150 more licenses for the card program. And I think the corporate side now is saying, oh, fuck. What the fuck is going on? This was supposed to be 50 licenses, maybe 100, then it went 150, and no fought 200 million thing, and we were supposed to get the business a year or two later, and now you're getting 150. The state's having issues because they're knowing they're getting called out, and they're trying to figure out how to make this still look the right way to the public, and now they're scaring the shit out of corporate. In the long run, corporate's coming. This is a capitalist country. There's no other way around it. All we need is to have a fair shake so that some of us, some of the legacy, some of the social equity that have been dealing with, if I'm talking too much, tell me, but I don't feel that every single person on the street that caught hell over cannabis, or every person that dealt with low income areas or anything, deserves to get in front of this, that, and the other. That's not capitalism. All I do hope is that this industry is the biggest industry that has ever affected this world. You know, bigger than anything we've ever imagined. Even when we were younger, saying, let's hustle for 5 million here, 10 million there, smuggle a load in. It was never anything compared to what this is going to be worldwide. And with trillions of dollars coming in, with an industry that doesn't need a person who understands algorithms, nor a person who has a bachelor degree in this or that or the other. You have a new $1 trillion industry that has enough room and an ability for people that don't have 4, 5, 6 years of education or been involved with algorithmic studies and all this stuff. There's enough room to bring in the average Joe to where we can hand 100 billion, 200 billion into hands that are never going to have that ability. And I want to be here to try to help a little bit of that, because I don't think there's anything else in life that's going to come out and help any of the people that I know that I've been working with for decades, to come out of freaking the Bronx and to come out of lower income areas of Brooklyn or Queens and be able to grab hold of money to put their kids in a new car or send them to school and everything else. And a little piece of this industry can do that. Don't mean I don't want cookies locked out. I don't want Curaleaf locked out. Yeah, this is a free country, man. This is capitalism. Do your thing, but just give the opportunity to start a channel for us to get the legacy and social equity market to at least, not all these bullshit they've been doing in every other state, just a channel to get them moving so that they've got a year or two on top of the corporate America to get some dollars together and make this work. Now shut up.
No. Very, very insightful and appreciate that, especially, again, because like I said, New York is one of the most talked about, exciting markets. So being able to get the perspective from someone that's generationally been operating in the space out there. And even on that note, right, like for you guys to be operating, you know, we got 2 generations right here working in cannabis, right? And legalization really just happened in history. How does it feel to come from that legacy market to this? And then also in operating in the legacy market, did yourself or Pops ever see this legalization coming and being a part of it? Or was it more so just being a part of it kind of with or without that ever coming down the pipeline?
So you hear the question? You didn't hear?
No.
Question was, did we foresee things coming to this over the years?
No.
I would say 40 years ago, 35 years ago, back in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, when I was starting to get involved with some things, you didn't really see, you didn't anticipate it because how strong the illegal side of it was. The government it was really, you would talk to your friend and he would say, "Oh yeah, let's check out some weed," but the next two people hear about it and they say, "Oh my God, weed! Oh my God!" So the thought of what marijuana is has changed dramatically. I mean, you couldn't walk outside the door and say, "Hey, I'm gonna smoke a joint." If you did that, there'd be six people going, "Oh my God, oh my God." It's over with. And I think, it took a little bit of time to get to that. I think in the 90s, when we were doing our commercial grows and stuff, me and my father were discussing a lot of the time, and my brother, who was quite a bit younger than me, he was involved with things with me, and we had a lot of discussions saying, watching how the hydroponic market the stores were going. We were involved in hydroponic stores at that time, and watching how the movement of cannabis was going to the indoor cultivation side. We had an idea that it was getting more accepted. You could watch it year by year where you would see more and more people accept the use of it and understand that it's not that bad. When I was I went to jail for, I don't know if you knew, I went to prison for cultivation of cannabis. And while I was in the joint, we had a lot of discussions. He went with me, actually. We both enjoyed the vacation. We had a lot of discussions, and we anticipated some changes that were occurring when Prop 215 was coming in, because I actually helped argue on one of the first cases for Prop 215. It was there was a woman that was arguing about her right to possess a bigger amount because her doctor would say that it was something that she needed. And it had to go all the way through the Supreme Court of California. And they said, "You're right. The doctor decides, not the police, not the legislature." So I was involved in the beginning. When I got into jail, and we actually planned from there, and we got involved with a lot of the first collective cooperative stores that were coming out. I helped out with a lot of, luckily, even though I went to prison, I made a lot of bread. So we helped out starting a lot of collective stores and things like that. So when I came home, we were still involved in doing things. So we had a little bit of knowledge on it, but it's been a wild ride. I mean, watching the changes day by day. You walk out in New York now, and it used to be you walk out in the damn street, and I light a joint, and I might be able to, me with my white ass skin and everything else, I might well be able to walk down the block and make it halfway down the block without anybody saying anything. But if I'm walking with one of my Puerto Rican bros or my black brothers or something like that, and we light a joint, next thing you know, boom, they're jumping out of the woodwork, throwing us against the wall. Oh, this, that, and the other. So now when you walk down and you're passing a cop and stuff, I gotta say, with that aspect, no, that's amazing. I mean, coming from that kind of lifestyle and then walking by a cop and saying, "Yo, officer, you want to hit?" "Nah, I'm on duty." You're like, my God, man, how life changes. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was a trip for me. I was telling Lenore before we started, my first trip ever to New York was just last year, and I heard about being able to smoke in the city where you could smoke cigarettes, and it was unreal being in Times Square and having police everywhere. And I was the last one of the crew to light up. I'm like looking for an alley to duck into, and everyone's sitting there.
Well, that was your first time. You said,
calling me names, and
that was your first time. You said
first time in New York. Yes, sir.
Oh,
yeah.
See, if you had been here in the 90s, early 2000s, I got home in 2007. I'm walking the street with my buddy Shorty. How do you say that? Sorry that he passed away, but that was my brother. walking down the street with my buddy Shorty, short ass Puerto Rican friend of mine, and we're smoking a joint, and I hand off the joint to him, and the minute the Puerto Rican gets the joint in his hands, boom, there comes the NYPD against the wall. They go right by me, throw him against the wall. And I'm going, yo, what about me? And they're like, shut up. They're going through his pockets. And I'm like, damn, man, don't kill the Puerto Rican Jews right here. What's up, man? I'm Irish and Jewish. What do you want from me? And if you saw the differences, you'd be even more amazed when you're watching what goes on in New York now. I mean, it's if you had been in New York in the 90s and the early 2000s, you would be astonished by it. Like, it doesn't stop surprising.
Yeah. It was unique not being from there. I can only imagine coming from there. What is one of these things as legalization continues to go there, besides being able to smoke freely? What are some of the things that excite you most being a New Yorker of now having legalized cannabis in New York?
That excites me the most. Cannabis always had listen, New York City is a little different than LA. It's quite different than Miami. Miami is a very big drinking town. I mean, everybody likes to drink a lot. New York, also a drinking town, but they mix it with cannabis. California, a very big smoke town. New York, you get a little more over the years, you would notice, like, you could go out, and whether you were at the Limelight for the techno rave thing back in the 90s, or we were sitting at Palladium listening to the hip hop or late night techno or Webster Hall or any of these other ones, Copacabana, you always had your drinking, but the people I associated with and a lot of people in the crowd, they'd be smoking too. So it kept the vibe of the club was always a lot mellower than it was in Miami and such. It just was the weed kept the alcohol to a certain parameter where it didn't go too much fighting and stuff, not as much. Now with what it's doing here, being so wide open and such, it's people aren't like, oh, I can't smoke right now. I got to wait till later, and too much people getting smashed. Now everyone's smoking a bit and calming down on a little bit of the alcohol end of it. So it's making a very nice, calm, celebratory time in most of the clubs and everything. And I don't go out as much, a little bit here and there. My sister still goes out a lot, and my youngins around my family, they go out quite a bit. A little bit here and there. Try to get my wife to go salsa dancing and stuff every so often, but got a Dominican wife who just fantastic. Dance is fantastic. I just can't get her around as much as she used to like to. But it's helped a lot to make things just a very fun time again. It's mellowed out the scene, so there's not much chaos. It's just a really good time every time you go out or do anything around New York right now.
Yes, it's hard to be upset about things when you're able to smoke cannabis so freely. Obviously you guys have seen a ton of members, a ton of local people, and you've obviously been involved in the industry for a long time. We know, looking at the industry as a whole, flower is king. It's the number one selling SKU or product category. For New Yorkers, you feel like it's the same thing? I know a lot of people are talking about beverages and edibles and what that's going to do for lounges, but do you feel like out there flower is still king in terms of the preferred product category?
I guess I've heard for years now, like, you hear the question? The preferred category of in the people's use, whether it's flower or vapes or this, that, and the other.
Well, it's still flowers number one.
Well, here,
yeah,
I was going to say, like, California has I guess over the past 5 years, 6 years, they've faded into a very heavy use of these disposables and all that stuff. I'm gonna listen. As I'm getting older and older, I'm an environmental type person. I hate messing up the environment. So we carry vapes and disposables, all that. I'm hoping people are, trying to keep their mind on what protects our environment a bit. But use-wise, New York is still, because we're really fresh into the legality aspect, the availability of stuff all around you. Everyone's still, I would think it's because of that, or it could just be that New Yorkers have always been loving flower. Flower was 70% of any distribution is flower in New York, where 70% they say is like vape products, 60% in California. Um, uh, New Yorkers like vapes. They enjoy edibles. They like all that stuff, but we still have a large segment of the populace, which is why you keep hearing the few people that can't stand weed still, or just aren't used to it that well, to where they're going, oh, the smell is killing me, because we have so many people that still love flower. So, hey, I'd love to help everybody out with their noses so we can switch it over, but I love the smell of weed. And I love having New York really love flower, because I love seeing all the different growers coming out of New York. I love seeing all the different flower coming out of Cali, Arizona, everywhere. To me, that's more fun than anything else involved with this, is because I was into growing since I literally grew at Neville's Castle with them back in I don't know if you ever heard of that. Neville's Castle was the first place that produced seeds for the world outside of Holland. I met Arjan from Greenhouse Seeds there back in the 1980s. And I watched some of the first major cultivation stuff go on across the world. And from there, I love watching all the different flower and the strain crosses and everything else. To me, that's the best.
And on that note of cultivation, what was the thought? What was going through your head when you created that commercial cultivation that obviously I believe is what contributed to the forced vacation or trip away, if you will. What was the temperature on like just setting that up at that time, right? That was a risk, if you will, and something that not a lot of people were doing. What went into creating that, and how long did you have that running for, if you don't mind sharing?
No, I don't mind at all. I love everything I've done, brother. Every single bit of it. And I ain't worried about what the man thinks or anybody else. They don't like it. They should have stopped it a long friggin' time ago. Commercial cannabis. I was growing in Florida quite a bit. I moved to Florida at about 11 years old, 12 years old, and we were going back and forth New York and Florida because my dad had some businesses there. I found out this old man was growing some shit on a ranch he had down there. And so I started doing my own little cultivation stuff at about 16 years old. And I started experimenting with ebb and flow trays. You see them now with Rockwool. And this was when no one knew what the hell that was. You got what? Rockwool? Was that a sponge? No one knew anything about it. So I learned everything from reading Ed Rosenthal's books and reading High Times. And I went to school for a couple subjects and learned everything. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the growers out there. So we found some associates brought a strain in from Colorado back in the day that was really nice indoor work, but you could only find little bits of it in Florida. So I started getting clones from them and growing it. And it was a very good strains, really nice work. It was some type of Northern Lights 5 type cross. And you were getting at that time $6,000 a pound. It was quite amazing. I mean,
no, what's amazing is where it is
yeah,
now.
what it is now is crazy. We used to get $6,000 a pound, 65. I used to break the stuff down and get $13,000 a pound back then. So probably about 1989, we had set up, my father by then had started doing a little bit with me, and we set up a house in Palm Bay, Florida. And we had we had a barn on that ranch he was growing on before. I set up this barn. We redid the interior because they were growing outdoors. And I turned this big barn, it was a horse barn, I turned it into a 12-light setup. This is about 1987. And we checked it out for a bit. We did it for a few years. And we made a nice check from it. We were quite amazed at how much the prices were going, and we really loved the herb we were growing. So we I had some seeds sent from Amsterdam, and they got messed up on the way. And I said to my father, I said, all right, screw that. I ain't doing this again. He said, what are you doing? I said, I got my passport. I'm going. He says, you're 18 years old. I don't give a shit. I'm going. So I shot over there, and I went over and made my first appearance at some of the clubs, the Bulldog over in Amsterdam and all that, and ended up weeding my way to finding this place called Neville Seed Bank, the first major seed company. And from there, I brought seeds back. I won't explain how I got them back or anything else because that I don't want to talk about. But I ended up getting them back to the States, and we crossed some strains that we got from Neville, some Northern Lights 5, Northern Lights 1, and I believe it was Big Bud. And we came up with a strain that was called Kryptonite. And from there, an associate came down to see me in New York, people that we know, good friends up in New York, and they said, hey, we could do this up there right now. I said, really? So we came up and looked around, and everyone was do this, do that. And I said, wait a minute. I went into a building. I looked around, and I said, got 27 stories on this damn building. What's his face owns this building? I need 5 floors, and I'm taking 4 of them, and they're going to be empty. And I'm running all the electric to the one floor, and I can do all I want. No one's ever going to notice. And we set up our first grow on 38th Street in Manhattan. We actually got busted there too, but we didn't get convicted of. They busted we had 198 1,000 watt lights and 3,000, like 30 something hundred plants growing.
That was a lot.
Yeah, 3,000 plants. And you got to see this place. We had, how tall are you?
6'4".
We had them just below your height. I grew 3,000 plants through this basement in 38th Street in Brooklyn, 10,000 square feet. They were all 5-6 feet tall. And we had them in Rockwell slabs. And from there, we had, you hear about Washington Heights up in the upper part of Harlem and Manhattan, where the Dominicans have really had it locked down for years for cannabis distribution. We were part of the beginning of that. When you hear about PIF and all that stuff, the purple haze and all that, before you had purple haze in New York, before you saw any indoor coming into the city, or even that much in California, Florida, we were putting 100, 150 pounds of this stuff called Crippy out onto the streets of New York, and every single bag either went to the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn or went to the Washington Heights. And my guys were, whether it was my Dominican brothers or my black brothers, they were, they buy 10 pieces at 6,400 and they come back and say, if you don't sell those last 10, I'll give you 7,000. I don't give a shit. I was like, whatever. Well, yeah, this is what made it. And by the way, when I got in trouble for that building in Brooklyn, I wanted to let everybody know. One thing, me and him, he actually, I was in Mexico smuggling some weed back. This guy called me back from Mexico. We found this building in Williamsburg or Bushwick, kind of the border or whatever. Bushwick. And 260 Moore Street, and right down from the Boar's Head plant. He calls me in. He says, look at this building. I said, what the hell did you call me back for? I got all these pounds coming back from. We made the first. He found a building with a bunch of big skylights in the roof. So you're remembering good, right? I walk into this building. I'm looking around this place, and I said, come on, man. This is a pop. We could buy a warehouse anywhere in the city. What do they go now? Just come on. We walked every floor. We get to the top floor of this building. I'm like, Pop, I can't believe I came all the way back from Mexico. Blah, 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 blah. We walked to the top floor. I look up. I said, what the hell is that? He goes, oh, what? Those wood panels? I go, yeah, what's those big wood panels covering the roof? He goes, those are old skylights, all covered with wood. I said, holy shit. I said, where are we? He goes, we're only a mile away from LaGuardia Airport. They can't overfly here. I said, holy shit. When we got in trouble, we had I don't say anyone wasn't doing light dep before us, but I want to tell you, you hear about light dep and all that today. We took a building in 1994 or 95. We got to do it, right? 95 in Brooklyn. We took the skylights out. We put greenhouse glass on these 60 foot by 30 foot spaces, 8 of them in the roof. And then we surrounded it with 200, 1,000 watt lights. And we rocked the first light dep facility with aeroponic units in the 1990s.
The fuck, man? You were doing light deps in downtown New York.
Yep, in the 90s, brother.
Well, what happened was
Damn.
they invented the aeroponic setups in Israel, but they were all small units. So Larry Brooks up in what is it, General Hydroponics?
Yeah, you heard of General. It used to be owned by before it was Monsanto. It was owned by Larry Brooks.
Larry Brooks owned it. So he was building these 4 tube units, and so we go to him and we say we need.
100 foot by 60 feet or what?
We had 100 tubes going in a 60-foot reservoir that held 1,600 plants, and he never built anything like that before. He said, "Well, we gotta get some engineering done."
He shows up out there. He calls me. He goes, "I just talked to Larry." He said, "Fucking impossible. I don't know how the fuck I'm going to build that." And I said, "Throw him 150,000. Tell him to take fucking 2 months. I need it 3 months from now." So my dad and Larry sat down and they planned out building a full commercial aeroponic system from, brother, like I said, the only people talking about how to grow indoor and all that was reading High Times for your closet. We built all the first major projects. So here we go.
What strains were you running out of that facility?
All crypto. I had, like I said, I had crossed these strains I got from Neville Seed Bank. It was Northern Lights 5, Northern Lights 1, and Big Bud. And it created, and then we crossed it with G13. And that's how we came up with this strain we call Kryptonite. And it was the limiest, it was so limey. It looked just like you were looking at like Superman was going to pass out when you put this in front of him. And everyone on the streets called it crypto. And it was, if you look back and speak to anyone from the 90s in New York, what's the indoor stuff you'd see? The only thing they're going to tell you is later in the 90s, maybe after 97, they said PIF started coming around. That's about when it came in 96, 97. But from like 91 in New York, you were either seeing outdoor Humboldt, little bits of it that they were claiming was indoor, really good outdoor. Today you look at it, you go, that's outdoor. Or you saw Kryptonite running the streets of New York. Biggie was smoking my shit. Jay-Z, all them. If you ask them, what were you smoking in the 90s? They're going to go, oh, that was Kryptonite shit in the Marcy Projects. Because it was them that were buying it.
That is legendary. Did you keep kind of running those genetics, or did you kind of graduate to doing some other stuff, or keep it mainly around the Kryptonite?
When I got out of 98, they smashed my operation, and I got 10 years in prison in the federal prison system for cultivation. A little bit of smuggling involved too, but mostly cultivation. And I still have the strain today, but I haven't restarted it in all these years. I just haven't felt like I was ready to do it. I want to make sure we got it going the right way. We're probably going to do it now because I'm about to set up some major cultivation stuff on a collective cooperative basis. One of these days, you and me will go over that. I found some other loopholes that they got in this law, which I don't think are loopholes. I think it was intentionally put in by somebody, but it allows me to grow with all my members are going to be signed up freely as medical patients in a minute. And we're going to be growing plants all over New York City for all my medical people. But when I got home from prison, I started back growing. I had one of the first, I don't know if you know where Santa Rosa, California is.
Yeah.
I got out of prison. I came home. My cousin, who's a big smuggler from Colombia and stuff, they used to bring in like 20,000-pound freighter loads from Colombia. I got home from prison, welcomes me home. He says, hey, my friend up here, a friend of ours named Kitty from Santa Rosa, she has some property. We went up there and I put together, I literally was still on federal supervision. And I got home and I put up a 100-foot light depth greenhouse on her property and two 40-foot by 40 by 30 units and full light depth, everything. And this is 2014. So 2012, actually, 7 I came home. Yeah, 7 I came home. So 2012. I got pinched again a little after that. So I was gone again for 2 years, but then I came back again. And then I did those light depths. But nobody else was doing them. Like, you barely saw it. You come up to Santa Rosa, you're like, what the hell is that? We had it going. It was great. It was good.
And for you, how much was cannabis, like, because I think a lot of people, when we talk about it, right, especially in the legacy days, There's a passion around it, there's a belief in it, but there's obviously, like, when it's generational like yourself, it's a means to put food on the table, right? What it's a hustle, right? Whether the intention of that hustle is to make a bunch of money, invest it somewhere else, make a bunch of money for whatever, or just provide for the family. But for yourself, to do it and to get sent away for it a couple different times, like, obviously there's a couple different elements to you. So for yourself, where do you view cannabis as a mix of, like, a passion, something you love, and also like a means to provide?
I take it as any person, you or anyone else, you do certain things for certain periods of your life, and it's very complicated to switch your mind around and learn whole new things to do. I initially started with cannabis because I just enjoyed cannabis and I saw the hustle to be able to make some money. By the time I was in my 20s, I was more knowledgeable about cannabis cultivation, this, than probably anyone in the world. I still say today that I probably hold one of those categories. I left for so long, like from 28, I was gone till I was almost 40. So by the time I walked out of prison, I have a very good mind. I'm not a I got a far stretch from being a stupid individual, but anybody, even when you come home, walking home at 30 something years old and you got to start fresh and start new, it's very hard to switch up and try to learn new things and start new endeavors. So I went to what I knew, and there was still a large amount of money involved into it. Uh, I did a lot of it because I enjoy taking care of my family. I'm not going to lie to somebody, I enjoy having a lot of fun, having money to have a lot of fun. And it's always allowed that, but it's always been an exciting business. The people you worked with, nowadays when you go out into the cannabis sector, it's a different atmosphere because you've got all these corporate suits and everybody else. I can deal with them. As I said, I don't find myself to be slow in the slightest bit. I'm pretty good IQ wise, so I can deal with the people, but it's a different parameter. It used to be just the feeling and the being underground and the full of
I know the words you're looking for. Getting over.
Yeah, the getting over on everything. You just loved it. It was great. I've always been one, and so is my pop. We look at things as every time I get in trouble, they're usually like I've beaten probably 8 out of 10 cases that I get in my life because when I do something, I do it planning out what the negative and the positive is and how to make sure the law, because whether the government can come at you or not, the law says certain things that the government has to do to be able to take care of that, stopping you from doing what you're doing. I always do it in a way that allows the law to help protect me. And I enjoy having adversaries. I think, just like I said, I got the guy across the street that wanted to open up a dispensary right across the street. So God bless, man. I enjoy competition. It's fun. DEA was always 1,000 people against you and your brain working to get around everything. It was always fun. I always found it real amusing to figure out how to make everybody else.
Well, tell them the truth. You just like breaking at shops.
That too, yeah. So we've had a lot of fun bucking balls over the years. So, but yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I love that, and I appreciate that answer. As we move into this legalization, there's that separation of church and state between, like, the culture and the passion and corporations. But I think when we look at legacy, right, it was a mix of both, right? There's people in it for passion, there's people in it for the hustle. But if you partake in the commerce of cannabis, you have to take into account the hustle. Any business, right, has to make money to survive, to pay people, to keep it moving. So I just appreciate the candor around that. What else does Empire Cannabis Clubs have on the docket besides, the fifth store is opening up around 420 in Soho, and then you said you have another location planned. What else do you guys have on the docket for the rest of 2023?
Well, we got some big parties coming up. We got the 421 party with Redman and Method, which is going to be an amazing party. Shortly after that, my members are going to get another big one, getting close to 710 and 4th of July. We're going to plan out I'm trying to get an outdoor. I got a lot of members now, so I'm trying to find venues that can accommodate a very big crowd. And we're trying to set something up with an outdoor setup for 10, 20,000 people. A lot of reggae, and the guy I used to smuggle from Jamaica when I was a kid. So I still love reggae and everything else. So we're going to try to put together a nice reggae tone, maybe to the evening festival for the summer months. And along with that, like I've been involved over the years with a lot of nightclubs and things that I had my hands involved with. So we're going to, they're allowing consumption lounges, and it's a common sense thing. You're not gonna, you can't say, hey, you can't get together and enjoy something that people recreationally enjoy. So we're going to create a nice environment with a few different large scale consumption lounges. We're starting, like I told you, in Fulton Mall to have something that should be very impressive. And I'm trying to get something else locked down in the city that I can't, in Manhattan, that I can't lay out yet. But in a moment, we should have probably one of the bigger nightclub style consumption lounges set up for Manhattan also. And that and about 10 or 12 dispensaries around the city. And Empire should be locked in, buddy. The Elfand, it was funny. I tell you what my company's called?
Nah.
We called our company. Remember, my dad just told you we like to bust balls, right? We don't like to give in. What I got in trouble with back in the 1990s when I went to prison, they called my group the Elfand organization, and me and my father were the bosses of it. We had a large amount of people.
Well, tell them how many people were involved.
Well, they got in trouble was just you and me.
Yeah, your brother, me, and you.
Yeah, nobody else.
That was the Elfand.
They wanted us to tell on everybody, but the end result was just me. The only ones that went away was us. And they called us the Elfand organization. So when I started my endeavor in New York, I looked to tip my hat. I'm not wearing my Empire Cannabis hat right now, but I tipped my hat to the DEA and I said, the Elfand organization's back. Check it out. So I formed the company under that controls Empires, the Elfand organization. Came back to get weed going again in New York. And we're going to make sure that the consumption lounges, the dispensaries, the enjoyment of cannabis is here the way it's always been in New York. The guy from Washington Heights is going to have his spot. The person from 169 is going to have their spot. The one from Marcy Projects in Brooklyn going to have his spot. We're going to make sure that everything still carries on as the Big Apple's going to be here.
You know what the most amazing thing is that this will be our third party. And the first two were also big parties, not as big as this. There wasn't one physical or verbal altercation. Not a one.
Yeah, it was. It's a very rare thing when you get thousand some odd 2,000 people together and not one thing. So the government better realize cannabis is here, and cannabis is going to keep the whole United States nice and mellow for the future. So it's going to rock.
Even when you put 1,000 angry New Yorkers in one spot, huh? There's nothing pops off, man. Dang. All right. That's an important thing. I mean, we've thrown a lot of cannabis events and definitely see the same thing coming from any non-cannabis event. There's always property destruction, fights, cannabis events. It's like it ends early. Everyone's trying to skate out for more food. They like clean up after themselves on the way out. It's a funny thing, man. Well, I greatly appreciate both you guys, Jonathan and Pops, hopping on here. For people that want more information, EmpireCannabisClubs.com. Again, they got 4 locations open up around the city right now. The 5th location in Soho opened up around 421 party at Terminal 5 with Redman and Method Man. Appreciate it, man. Had a amazing conversation with some legacy legends over from the East Coast, man. Appreciate you guys. Anything else you want to plug real quick before we get up out of here?
Nah, Mitch, just have a wonderful freaking time. Bring your ass back to New York, and we'll take you out and show you what New York's really about with cannabis now, and we'll have a good time.
I'm with it. I'm with it. This is the RMR podcast. Stay tuned. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. If you're on Spotify, Apple, favorite this, check in for